This is our March 21st, 2024 Bowling Green Warren County Planning Commission, and
I'll call.
Mr. Peterson, if you call the roll.
Yes, sir. Ballinger. Cassida.
Here.
Sissel.
Here.
Commissioner Drain.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Gay. Commissioner Graham.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ritchie.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks. Commissioner Vitale.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volkert.
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, you have in your packets the minutes of our March the 7th, 2024 meeting. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I would call for a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Volkert.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Cassida.
Abstain.
Commissioner Sissel.
Abstain.
Commissioner Drain.
Abstain.
Commissioner Graham.
Abstain.
Commissioner Ritchie.
Abstain.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale.
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion is approved to approve our minutes. Commissioners, you have in your packets subdivision site development plans for information. Are there any questions? All right, hearing none, we move into our new business. Our first item tonight is our financial report. Megan.
Hello, everyone. So in your package, you should have the fiscal year 25 proposed budget. There should be a budget memo in there, and then also a copy of the budget itself. So just to bring everybody up to speed, we're going to review the budget, and then this is what we have to have in order to submit the budget to the city and the county. We'll just, I guess, jump right in onto the budget itself. The green column, you guys will notice that is our projections. That's what I am forecasting that we will end up with for this year. And since we're on a cash budget, we have to have that projection as accurate as we can so that we know what we're going to start off with in our funds for next year. Our budget's very similar to what we've got this year. I've highlighted in blue any changes that we have. So we'll just start at the top of the budget in the yellow column. You'll see line number 1 is our projected carryover, which is roughly $650,000. And then we're going to jump down to lines number 2 and 3, which is our city and our county contribution. You'll notice that that's highlighted blue. That's a 3.4% increase, which is the CPI, which is what the Department of Local Government tells us the increase is going to be for our COLAs for this next year. That's the percentage that the city and the county both shoot for their COLAs for their employees as well. And I think our strategy from here on out, instead of leaving that flat each year and only asking for an increase when we need it, is to just each year go ahead and request that increase in the COLA, because that is what we give our employees, and you guys know that a huge portion, close to 90% of our budget is payroll. So we'll just keep on target each year by asking for that increase. If we skip down a couple lines and look at number 5 and 6, that is our MPO and our transit planning funds. You'll notice a very significant increase in those this year. That's because we have a transportation study and a transit marketing campaign planned for this next year. Again, you guys know those are essentially a pass-through for us. We'll receive that money, but then we also pay that money back out for those studies that we have done. We'll get into that a little bit more on the next page. If we keep scrolling down, we'll look at line number 20. That is our interest income. That increase, or that's having a substantial increase this year too. We were able to swap our checking and our savings account, keep the same accounts, but add sweep accounts to them. So we're earning close to right at 4.25% interest right now, compared to, I think, roughly 0.5% that we were earning. So that should increase our interest income significantly.
Is that the one we recently just changed?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. If we keep going down on the budget, lines number 25 through 33, those are our personnel expenses. We've already talked about the 3.4% COLA that we're going to do. But then also on line 27, something to note, that's a decrease. CERS, which is our retirement, is decreasing by 3.6% this year. So our payroll is right at a wash, which is a good thing. We've been able to make that up. That'll help because our construction review fees that we're kind of forecasting aren't quite as high as what we were wanting, so that helps out there. If we go on to the second page, we'll start at line number 34. 34 is our advertising fees. We're expecting those to have a pretty significant decrease this next year. There's been a change in the advertising requirement, so we're not having to place as large of an ad, which is reducing the rate. We've only started doing this recently, so we're not sure how much of a decrease this is going to be. I've plugged in $18,000, although I think it'll probably be much lower than that, but just to be on the safe side, I've lowered it to 18. If we keep going down, line number 43, which is our miscellaneous grant projects, we've zeroed that out, although since I did this budget at the beginning of the month, we have figured out we are going to get another small grant. It's about $7,000, so that actually will change. And let's see if we keep going down, lines number 46 through 51, those are the MPO expenses that I was referring to a few minutes ago. Most of these are, or line 48 and 49 are increasing because of the transportation study and the transit campaign that I was telling you about. Again, should be pretty much a pass-through for us. Carissa has been really good about working with the city and the county, and the local match that we're supposed to pay, they've been paying or been helping us pay that as well. If we keep scrolling down a little bit, line 53, 54, and 55, those have small increases in them. One is our attorney fees for the Board of Adjustment. Hoy is increasing his rates a small amount for next year. And then our insurance, I think, is going to increase a little bit. And then we've had a few lawsuits in the past year that we've had. So that's has increased our attorney fee for Planning Commission. Got a small decrease on line number 58, which is our GIS data acquisition fee. And then if we scroll down to the bottom, lines 72 through 78, I think we've got in the budget to buy a new copier for this next fiscal year. And then 75, 76, and 77, those are our technology reserves, comp plan, and equipment. And each year, I put $10,000 into technology, $30,000 into comp plan reserves, and $10,000 into equipment and vehicle reserves. So that's why those amounts have increased. That's pretty much it, a quick rundown. Are there any questions that I can answer for anyone?
Commissioners, any questions for Megan? As always, good job. Thank you for all you
Thank
do.
you. Yep, thank you.
So we do need a motion
Yes.
to accept the proposed budget for 2020, 24?
25.
25.
25.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Cassada,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Sissel,
Yes.
Commissioner Drain.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry. Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ritchie,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion is, the budget is,
Oh, I did again, sorry, Commissioner Vitale.
Yes, sir.
all right.
Thank you.
The budget has been approved. Our next item is our letters of credit and performance bonds.
Chair Warren, I need to apologize. We do have revised agendas. There are actually 4, and I have those here if anybody would like these for reference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, thank you, Rachel. We have 4 letters of credit and performance bonds. Rivers Landing Edge, Summit Subdivision, Summit Subdivision, and Summit Subdivision. You see the amounts. So we do need any questions, excuse me, first. And we do need a motion to approve, to release these credit and performance bonds.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Cassada,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Sissel,
Yes.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ritchie,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion's been approved. Our next item tonight is our personnel action. Rachel, Ben, who's, Rachel? Okay.
Thank you, sir. So you should have received a memo in your packet. And as you all know, we were on the search for a new Planner One. We had 37 candidates apply for the position. We interviewed 6 candidates in the first round, and then we invited 2 candidates back for a second round interview. We feel that we have selected the best candidate, Matthew Owen. He has accepted the position on a conditional offer and will be starting Monday, March 25th, so this upcoming Monday, pending your all's approval. And we've also completed a successful drug screening and background check. And so you'll see just a little bit about Matthew's background. He's a graduate of Murray State University and holds a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science and a Master of Science in Sustainability Science and has experience with GIS. And so our staff is pleased to make the recommendation to hire Matthew Owen as our Planner One. And we ask that the Planning Commission approve his hiring to the position of Planner One with a start date of Monday, March 25th. And we will need a motion to make this official.
Thank you, Rachel. Commissioners, any questions for the position for Mr. Matthew Owen?
Very quickly, Rachel, if you would, it's a conditional offer. Is that the traditional probationary period offer, or what does a conditional offer mean in this?
There is a probationary period, 6 months. That's right? 6 months? Yeah.
Is that what is meant by conditional offer?
It was conditional on
Yeah, it's
this
conditional
approval
us approving it.
tonight,
Yes,
yeah.
on disapproval, yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, very good.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Graham. Commissioners, any other questions for Ms. Hurd? All right. Hearing none, would call for a motion to the employment of the hiring of Matthew Owen.
I move that this commission approve the hiring of Matthew Owen for the position of Planner One as recommended.
Second.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ritchie,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ballinger,
Yes.
Chair Warren.
Yes, the motion is approved and to hire Mr. Owen. Ben, do we have any old business?
No, sir.
All right, we now enter into our public hearing. Mr. Moore, if you would administer the oath, please.
Chair Warren, please, if you would, order that tonight's record include all relevant statutory and regulatory provisions, the commission's entire file for the application on tonight's docket, and the qualifications for each staff witness. Finally, if you would, please administer those to those.
Swear to tell the truth? Thank you very much. All right, our first item tonight on our public hearing is 2024-04 DP Bristow Partners LLC. Oh, wait a minute, excuse me, that's been withdrawn. Our first item tonight is 2024-11 Z County. John and Susan Yoakum have filed an application for zone 2.4 acres located at 389 Thackle Ferry Road from Ag to RE Residential State with a general development plan. Jenny?
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-application meeting for the property over on Thackle Ferry Road back in February. The current zoning of the property is Ag. The current land use is single-family residential, and then the future land use designation is rural village. Their concept can be found on page 6 of your all's packet for reference. And to reiterate, the applicants are proposing to rezone 2.42 acres from agriculture to residential estate in order to create an additional building lot. The existing home is proposed to remain. Looking down to the compatibility with the comprehensive plan on page 1, the property is designated as rural village on the flume. The proposed RE zone is listed as a compatible zone, zoning district in this flume designation. And with that, staff found the application to be in compliance with the majority of the applicable items evaluated in the Focus 2030 comprehensive plan and generally compatible with the surrounding area. And then looking down to staff's recommendation, with that, the proposal complies with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process and is generally compatible with the surrounding area. And with that, staff's recommendation is for approval pending public hearing testimony and discussion tonight. And that's all that I have.
Thank
but I
you,
can-
Jenny. Commissioners, any questions for this request? Thank you very much. Is the applicant here or their representative? Anything you all would like to add? All right. Is there anyone in the audience tonight has a question or opposition to this request? All right. Thank you. Commissioners, would call for a motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon the general development plan docket number 2024-11ZCO. Based on the testimony and documents presented in the public hearing, the proposed zone map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zone map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion to include the summary of evidence and testimony presented at the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drainer,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion is approved and goes to Warren County Fiscal Court. And they had a special guest with them tonight. Jace, can you wave to everybody? Thank you for being here. All right, our next item tonight is the City County Planning Commission. Tonight will hold a public hearing to consider a text amendment to the zoning ordinance of Warren County in order to revise Articles 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. And Ms. Hurt.
Yes, sir. So I'll pull up our website and we can go to anything that we need to look at in detail if needed. But you should have received a memo, and we also included a summary of the proposed zoning ordinance changes. And then the full draft text is also attached in your packet. A lot of these things are housekeeping items, but I will touch on what we feel are kind of the main points or the main changes that are here for your consideration. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to interject. So the first thing I would like to point out, and Megan touched on this earlier, is in Article 3. That outlines our public notice requirements, and as far as our advertising goes, there is an option for some flexible online advertising that's now found within KRS, and so we've added that to Article 3. It should save us a significant amount on our advertising. For example, if we had a 10-item agenda in the past, we would have to list every single item in the newspaper ad, and that ad usually is around $700. With the new advertising option, our ads are right around $150. Even for just like a 4-item agenda, nothing out of the ordinary, that could run as high as $450. So that's a great option that we can now utilize. In Article 4, have made some clarification. Oh, go ahead. Yes, sorry.
I don't see the change.
It's in, should be your first page of the draft text, page 3-2. It's kind of hard to see. We've just taken out the 424.130 and the traditional publication and the alternate processor, both within 424. So it is hiding in there because the draft is red too. Then in Article 4, we have included some changes on freight containers. Currently, the text allows for some flexibility if someone wants to use a freight container as far as incorporating that into a primary structure. Some people have built their entire home out of shipping containers or freight containers, or other people have converted a freight container into an accessory dwelling unit. But there's been some misconceptions for those in residential areas who just want to move in a freight container in their backyard and store things in a single-family setting. It's not really within the character of those particular areas, so we have clarified that freight containers would still be permitted as far as dwelling units, accessory dwelling units, and then also in the case of larger ag or rural residential or residential estate zone properties, there would still be some flexibility to use those for just storage. But as far as being allowed in traditional single-family neighborhood settings, this clarifies that that's not permitted. We've also added some flexibility in our commercial and industrial zones for outdoor storage to include those types of containers. They're already prevalent in certain areas in the community in our commercial and industrial areas. So we have addressed that in Article 4. We have been approached, I'm moving down to maybe midway down in Article 4. We've added an option for central business zoning in the cities of Oakland, Smiths Grove, and Woodburn. We've been approached by some community members who maybe have a zoning proposal, and we've found that in these smaller city areas, there's on-street parking that's available. The lot sizes are traditionally smaller, and so our traditional commercial zones don't really fit the historic setting of some of our small city areas. So to allow some flexibility for those communities, we're proposing to allow central business zoning in those cities.
So, related to that though, so that's really the impact of putting that central CB zoning in Oakland, Smiths Grove, and Woodburn. But there's that change about adding the sewer requirement, so I don't know how that impacts.
I think, let me go to that page. Let's see here. That. Let me find that page, sorry.
430.
430. Oh, so this is basically just recognizing that in some areas like Woodburn, for example, sewer is not available. So it's possible that you could have this zoning and not be on sewer. But for example, in Smiths Grove, sewer is readily available, so in that application, you would be required to connect to sewer if you're in that particular zone.
So that's more about if it's available, you connect. It's not trying to make sure that you're going to be changing the whole system in order to allow it to have that business be able to operate.
Right. Traditionally, if property is within 2,000 feet of sewer, there's a requirement that you connect. So this would basically apply in that scenario, but if properties are further than that 2,000-foot distance, then they would be exempt as long as they meet the health department requirements for a septic system.
So it would allow this special commercial zoning on septic. Am I
Yes,
understanding that correctly?
potentially, in the areas where sewer's not available.
Got it, okay.
And then, I guess, just for some background, central business is basically the zone that we find in downtown Bowling Green. And there's not a minimum lot size requirement. The setbacks are 0. The parking requirements are 0 except for residential dwelling units, which are 1 per unit. So this would just allow that same flexibility in the smaller cities where historically that's already the character.
Got it.
Let's see, I'm going to move down, looking at page 4-46 and 47. We've added some flexibility for consolidated development signage for commercial, mixed-use, and industrial properties. So think of what you would see for like a consolidated shopping center area, like out on Gary Farms Boulevard, where you have the main sign out by the main arterial road with the different business names. Right now, that's only allowed for highway business zones when you have a certain amount of building under roof within a certain development. So this would allow some flexibility for other commercial, industrial, and mixed-use areas that may not fit those requirements. We have removed the prohibition of electronic message display signs for billboard advertising signs. So that's a big change.
So that would be you see in other communities where they scroll every minute, 30 seconds.
Yeah, so if you look on page 4-49 of the proposed changes, you can see that it has been removed as a prohibition, but then on page 450, there are restrictions on the signs having to have specific dimming capabilities. The minimum display time would be at least 8 seconds, and any change would have to be a static change. Essentially, it would have to flip from one message instantly to another. No motion or video would be incorporated on any of the displays. There's some standards for if the sign were to malfunction, how that would be dealt with. And then we've also included restrictions when this type of structure may be in proximity to a residential zone or use, so that we're mindful of any of the lighting. It's not going to be a nuisance to those residential properties.
So I remember when this was visited the last time, and it was kind of a hotly debated topic. Has this been requested by the billboard owners to allow this?
Yes, and they have met with our legislative bodies and the representatives ahead of time. And so we believe that there's support for this time around, where in the past that hasn't necessarily been the case.
Do we feel that, so I'm trying to think of a great example. There are, one in particular that comes to mind that I know received a lot of attention last time. There were a few billboard advertisers that were doing flashing blue in order to get the attention, and so have those things been visited properly in your view?
Yeah. If you look under the display time and transition method, number 2, on page 4-50, you'll see that messages must remain fixed, static, motionless, and non-flashing for at least 8 seconds, and that transitions between messages must be instantaneous.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, moving down the bottom of the summary amendments page, one thing to point out is that we're proposing to allow self-service storage units in our in the overlay district for Lovers Lane. This would be indoor climate controlled only, 2-story minimum facility, and there would be no exterior access to individual units. So that's one main change, because currently self-storage is prohibited in our overlays, just period, no matter what type of storage it is.
So what's the reasoning for that, Rachel?
There's been a request from some developers, multiple developers that have had interest in constructing that type of facility in the overlay. We did take this to the design review board, the Urban Growth Design Review Board, and so they did have input in the draft text, and they have recommended approval of the draft text to you all for your consideration. turning on the back page of your summary sheet, looking at Article 5, the main change in Article 5 relates to medical cannabis, including the sale, manufacturing, production, and growing of medical cannabis. Ben may want to interject if I say anything that's not correct, but basically, the state law has changed to where as of July 1st, in the state of Kentucky, you can apply for a license to either sell, manufacture, produce, or grow medical cannabis. And then January 1st of next year is when these things could actually start happening in the community. And so we have worked with our legislative bodies and at their direction have incorporated some amendments in the zoning ordinance relating to the sale of medical cannabis and also the manufacturing, production, and growing with associated specific use standards. And those are all contained in your draft text, basically on page 526, 530, and 537. Be happy to answer any questions about that. This would be in addition to the general state requirements that require that the sale of medical cannabis be at least 1,000 feet from any public school or daycare, or, well, primary, secondary school or daycare. You'll see in the draft text, we've also included college, so that would be within the distance of WKU or any university or college setting in our community as well. And then there are also spacing requirements proposed between facilities and things of that nature. And then the last thing I will touch on, jumping down to Article 8, looking at the definitions for manufactured and mobile homes. We've tried to modernize those definitions just based on current practice and current building types. And we have separated or added 2 definitions for manufactured homes. So we would have a type 1 manufactured home, which generally resembles the current definition in the ordinance for manufactured home. And we have added a type 2 manufactured home, which includes an increased roof pitch, higher quality foundation materials, and a front porch element. And so the type 1, essentially what we have now, those would continue to be allowed in rural residential and mobile home parks. And then the type 2 manufactured homes would be in ag, RR, RE, and mobile home parks as well. So those are kind of the meat and potatoes of the proposed changes. Again, everything else is relatively just a cleanup or clarification. I'll be happy to answer any questions, or we can dive into any of this in detail as needed.
Thank you, Rachel, for your report, and well presented. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Hurt?
I've got a few.
Yeah.
On 340, on 3.19.7A, when I was reading that, would it not be better or that on, within the change, that applicant fails to comply with such conditions, should it not be that the applicant fails to agree with such conditions?
Set on page 3-40,
Yeah, the first,
letter B,
well, A,
or letter A.
yeah.
And can you repeat your
So,
proposed wording there?
is
Sorry.
it on the part of the sentence says the applicant fails to comply, should it not be applicant fails to agree? Something like that, rather than,
Well,
It'd be apply.
so if
this is your,
So this would be for an overlay development plan with the design review board. So the board can conditionally approve an application. And so the applicant doesn't have to agree to those because they're basically saying, we're going to approve this if you do these things. I guess, so they don't really have an option to agree to them. They're just, the
So
board
the-
would say that that's what they're required to do. And if they fail to complete those required items, then they would not have approval
then
of the plan.
disapprove it, okay.
That's a little different of an application because it's more of a development review, site design, architectural review, and so the board can impose certain conditions, and they don't really have an option to agree to them. They just have to comply. So I think that's why it's worded that way.
This is kind of in the same line, kind of question. On 426, that was confusing. The change that you're suggesting there is confusing to me, the way it's written. And I was wondering about if driveways are subject to the setback except in the cases of,
Sure.
Yeah.
So in multifamily zones, this, I guess the best example I could give you is, let's say you have a duplex and then they just have a driveway. It's more of a residential appearance as far as the character goes. But if you had a multiple unit development where there were true parking lots or that look more commercial, then that's saying that there would be a setback required for the pavement in that application, to where landscaping would have to be provided.
so it makes sense to you as it's written?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And on 469, there's the removal of the retail establishments that have outside display units for sale totally is being prohibited, so what's the change with that?
So the reason for that change is that there's really no definition in the ordinance for an outside display unit. And so we have, in turn, added number 5, outdoor display. And that's clearly defined elsewhere in the ordinance. So it was more about the text that we're striking. There was no clear definition anywhere in the ordinance for us to even enforce that, so.
And then on 528, with the electric vehicle charging stations, you say they're not subject to the maximum number of pumps as outlined or with the regular pump, so why would there be a difference between the pumps?
So traditionally, your fuel pumps, I guess those are more commercial leaning in their appearance. They're usually under a canopy. And so in the general business and neighborhood business, our less intense commercial zones, we've limited the number. So it's more about a character consideration. But with the EV charging stations, those are traditionally found in just like a parking area, like in a parking space. So there's not really a change in character if someone were to install an EV charging station. So we felt like we needed to clarify that if you were zoned either neighborhood business or general business, that you could have the 4 pumps for regular fueling, whether that be gasoline or diesel, just like you normally would, but in addition to that, if you wanted to install EV charging stations, you could have more than just the 4.
I was looking at it more in terms of just the traffic coming and going, kind of thing too. So, with electric vehicles coming, becoming more common, that, I thought that, if you're trying to maintain traffic in and out of the neighborhood or whatever, that I didn't understand why you would have,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess we wouldn't expect an increase in traffic necessarily because the facility would still have the same number of parking spaces. And there's limits on the amount of land that they can cover in those zones as well. So I don't know that this would increase the traffic for a particular site. I think we've more seen this where a particular establishment may want to install EV charging stations where they have existing parking spaces, not in addition to what they already have.
I think that's it, so let me double check.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sissel. Anybody else have questions for Ms. Hurd? Very, very well thought out questions. Thank you for bringing those up. All right. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that would have a question regarding these changes? All right. Hearing none, Commissioners, the last page of the packet would call for a motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment as presented. My motion is based on the findings of fact as presented by staff and the testimony presented in this public hearing, that the zoning text amendment is in agreement with Section 310 of the Warren County Zoning Ordinance and the Kentucky Revised Status, Chapter 100.211. Further, I request that the findings of fact and recommendation be sent to all legislative bodies and include a summary of the evidence and testimony presented by the proponents and/or opponents of the proposed text amendment.
Second.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ritchie,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ballinger,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Cassada,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Sissel,
Yes.
Chair Warren.
Yes, the motion is approved, and the recommendation will go to all Warren County legislative bodies for final approval. All right. Any other discussion items tonight?
No, sir, just thank staff. A lot of work went into this document and
Thank you
as well
all.
as the other stuff, so appreciate that, as well, of course, the budget and all of that good stuff, so.
Thank you all very much, and we do have a quorum for our April the 4th meeting, so we stand adjourned until then. Thank you all very much.